Okay, it is Tuesday, July 19th, and today we are launching GPI's Federal Contracting Business Tube. Welcome to our first Lunch and Learn webinar on demystifying government contracting. I'm so excited that I'm able to reach the broad masses. My name is Paula Watts, founder and CEO of GPI, and we will be launching this webinar as it relates to government contracting and, again, demystifying contracting as it relates to small businesses. We provide innovative solutions for government contractors. GPI Business Tube, the reason I created this tube was because I wanted to make sure that we provided people with real talk, that were real people that had real experiences, just as I've had. This is also the place where you're going to be able to find weekly analysis on government contracting opportunities from various subject matter experts. So today what I wanted to talk about was some of my background and what I found as it relates to starting a business. Just to give you a brief overview, I started a business in 1996, and my first business, in the first year I received my first $1 million contract. The second year into the program, into business, I received my second $1 million contract. And I was able to continue to grow that business to close to $15 million in contracts, not really having a clue on how to run a business. Ended up getting sued and had to close the business in 2005, which pushed me really to my new passion, to making sure that no other small business went through what I went through. So some of the lessons that I've learned, and this is just to give you a brief overview, and in this 20-minute lunch and learn, some pearls of wisdom. First thing is not to limit your business. When I started my business as a event planning company. And after winning that first $1 million contract, I realized, like most small business when they're starting out, they base their business on their skill set. And after I won that $1 million contract, I was no longer doing event planning. So I had to change my business model. So a lot of those things are things that I teach in the class, that it's not really about you and your skill sets. It's about understanding how to run a business. That's why I say I can run any type of business. So you really can't pigeonhole yourself into one specific industry. Yes, you start your business out in your background and have some understanding of it, but when you look at government contracting and the types of contracts out here, they're buying people and experience. So you have to build a team. So I ended up changing my business model from an event planning company to a management consulting firm that had event planning as one of my divisions. And then I created other divisions, such as the IT division, a publication division, and then a database division, because I was already providing those services and coordinating events. So to me, it made sense. Why not just separate and sell those services separately? And after I created those divisions, I started winning contracts in those areas. So that's the first lesson that I've learned with coaching thousands of business and how to get started and get engaged. A lot of businesses, what I realized, the challenge with many small businesses is that they don't know how to transition from being an employee to a CEO. And as I've gone through this process of coaching a lot of these businesses, that's been my biggest challenge in getting businesses to understand that you don't necessarily have to do the work. So it is a great big mind shift of I don't have to do the work, that I now look at my business and look at people that I know that I could use on my team that can potentially perform the work as I look at contracting opportunities. The other thing I realized is you can't do it by yourself. Collaboration is key. Collaboration is key. It's too big. You don't have all the skill sets to do it by yourself. The first year in business, I identified the contract that was with a government agency, and we didn't have the contracting vehicle that the government was looking for. So we ended up finding a company that had that vehicle, and we negotiated with that company. We partnered with them, and we won the contract. So that was how I was able to get into the door. It's about building relationships. It's about building partnerships. Because so often in these contracts, there's always going to be multiple skill sets that you don't have. So in the GPI process, we teach people how to collaborate. And I think having worked at SBA, and again, I have an advantage than most people working as having a small business myself and having worked at SBA. By working at SBA, I was able to see what everyone else was doing and what was working. I was able to see what strategies were individual businesses using. So when I tell business, when you start your business, you need to have a strategy. Just don't start that business and not have an end goal. Make sure that you understand what you're getting into and that you know how to market your business, start your business, and not be in the position that I was in. Again, I was running a multi-million-dollar company, and after going through a bad partnership, I ended up getting sued, not understanding how to protect myself. So I tell businesses, there's a specific type of insurance that you would need, especially as you start hiring employees. At my peak, I had close to 40 employees. So you need employment practice liability insurance. Again, that's employment practice liability insurance. That's the type of insurance that would have covered any lawsuits. I ended up paying approximately $125,000 on a trumped up lawsuit. That's what ended up closing my business. I didn't have a clue on how to protect myself. So I tell business owners, make sure that you understand the game. Spend time in building your infrastructure, building relationships, because in order for us to successfully go after these contracts are structured for partnership. Collaboration is the key. You also need to understand what type of infrastructure that you're going to need to go after these contracts. When you're marketing to the federal government, the government is asking for specific type of infrastructure, such as your accounting system. It's an accountability process. And it makes sense to me because you need to know how your money is being spent and where you're making your money. Most businesses, again, having started out as a small business on your skill sets, don't really know or understand how you're making money when you're in business. I was an event planner. I didn't have a clue about profit and loss statements. I didn't understand the importance of my HR department. Once I got sued, I understood. But if you're just starting out, these are things that you don't know, but you need to know if you get my understanding. Now, if anyone have any questions in between or during this process, please feel free. You can unmute yourself, as well as you can write me a note through the chat feature. Understanding what infrastructure is required. Infrastructure, when I'm talking about infrastructure, that is the foundation of the business, meaning that your accounting system needs to be in compliance. You need to have an HR person especially if you're going to begin to hire employees. You'll need to understand marketing. How do I do all of this by myself? And then it still goes back to relationships. And you need to be able to understand how to build relationships. And that's hard. So for me, this model works going through this process, because we are now beginning to talk and ask each other, well, what do you do? Everyone is beginning to understand what NAICS codes are. And those are codes that are driven by these contracts. So the whole goal is to be able to, one, not limit your business and understand who's in your network that can help build and leverage your business. Understand that collaboration is key. It's key. You have to establish partnerships. You have to understand who's out there. You also will need to understand that your infrastructure needs to be in place before you put yourself out there. What type of marketing materials do you have? Are your marketing materials addressing the commercial or the government community? And the difference with marketing to the federal government is that you have a whole, with the federal government, you can follow where the money is being issued. In commercial, you really don't have a clue on where you're chasing. Because to me, being in business, you're just chasing money. But because the government is public dollar, then because the government is public dollar, you have a mechanism and databases that you can go to determine where your dollars are being spent. It's tax dollars. These are your dollars that are in these contracts. So I have a question here from Ms. Johnson. She's asking, Ms. Paula, you said that the contracts were set up for partnership. I have not gotten a clear understanding of how I can pursue the prime contractors to subs. A company was awarded a contract on the source of salt processes on the same steps, on the same day. What steps do I take to offer my expertise as a subcontractor? Well, the response would be, one, if that contractor is a large prime contractor, and it was awarded $750,000 or more. By law, they have to have a subcontracting plan. So I would probably recommend reaching out to the buyer directly, because again, on these contracts, they're going to identify a point of contact. You can also use other databases that we teach to see who actually won and try to chase or follow that person down the line, or see who the contact person is that's managing that contract. Everything is public information, but you can't, again, put yourself out there if you're not prepared. If your marketing materials or your websites or your information in sam.gov, which is the official website in order for you to do business, is not up to par, then a prime contract is not necessarily going to be willing to look for you. You need to be prepared and armored with the information. Did that answer your question, Ms. Johnson? So the answer, the next thing, where do I start? I often tell people, just to give you a broad vision, a broad base on this, is that start at USA Spending. USA Spending, if we go to that website, is going to show you where the government is actually spending by state. If I Google usaspending.gov, this is the website that posts all contracting and where all your contract dollars, where all your tax dollars are being spent. It not only tracks contracts, it tracks grants. And let's get a clarification between contracts and grants. So often when I was working at SBA, people were always calling SBA asking them, can I get a grant to start my business? Having had a contract where I provided grant support, grants are generally for nonprofit communities, and they are geared towards businesses who are doing something, or nonprofits who are serving the communities. Contracts are for profit, meaning the government is actually buying a service from your business. So there's two different end results between grants and contracts. What GPI is focusing on right now is contracts. So if you go to USA Spending, it's going to outline exactly how the government is spending your money. This particular website is actually driven from another website. The other website is the Federal Procurement Data System. That is the official checkbook for the government website. But for today, and for it being user-friendlier, we're going to look at this particular website. So if you're looking at your state, and let's say you're trying to see, we have a caller that's in the state of Florida, Ms. Jones. You can see here the number of transactions that have been awarded as it relates to tax dollars in the state of Florida. But again, this is going to include contracts, grants, and any type of financial assistance. This database is tracking all tax dollars. So if I want to get specific, I can go here to the spending map and narrow it down by what I am looking for. So instead of looking for grants and everything, I can check off where I'm just actually looking for contracts. I can also sort this particular database by the fiscal year. So if I'm looking for Florida, I can click on Florida, and I can narrow it down by county if I need be, or agency. And once I do that and click on it, it's going to bring out the types of contracts and who's been getting contracts in your state. So if I look here, it's telling me there's been a total of $9 million or $9 billion that's been awarded in the state of Georgia for this fiscal year. It's also identifying who's received those contracts and what agency. So this is really just a brief overview of how to use this website, but we go into more depth in our bootcamp classes and any direct one-on-one services. The next website, if you're trying to start a business and you don't know where to start, I recommend businesses go to this website and do a search based on your background so that you can see what types of contracts are out there. Yesterday, I posted an opportunity as it relates to barber and beauty salons. And sometimes I just go in here and look. So if let's say I'm in the sports industry and my background is, I was a former basketball player or NFL player. If I look here, it's going to bring up some opportunities right here. And it's also telling me who's been awarded contracts as it relates to just sports. And this is, you'll see the number. But I can Google on any industry to determine what types of contracts are out there. So you're not reinventing the wheel. Look at it from a strategic approach. That's my whole business model. We have about 10 minutes left. What I wanted to discuss with you is that in order for you to become a part of this process, I encourage you to go to the GPI and take the assessment ready test. Next month, GPI will begin to offer a host of specialty classes, not just on the beginning stages in the service side, I wanted to make this a inclusive process that business owners that go through this process will have the support that they will need in sustaining and winning in this game. So next week, next month, we will roll out classes on bidding on products, because that's a whole nother area in learning games where the government is just buying products offline. Ms. Serena Thomas, CEO of Serena Speaks, has a whole series of classes where she's going to teach you how to get engaged on the product side. I've brought in Mr. Michael Perch. He's the CEO of Roadmap Consulting Group. He is an expert on the GSA schedule. He is currently a professor at George Mason's University in Fairfax, Virginia. And he also helped them to receive a GSA schedule. So he's going to be able to provide you with the inside scoop on how to leverage the GSA schedule. We also have Ms. McLennan, who is the CEO of the Renaissance Management Consulting Group. She has gone and become certified through DCA as a DCA government contracting auditor, so that you can understand what the government's going to look for in your accounting system, or making sure that your accounting system is set up to support the contracts that you win. And having been sued and dealt with 5 attorneys, I felt the importance that we bring in the legal component of this, but because so often we don't understand the law. When I was sued, I didn't know the different types of lawyers I needed. I started out with a corporate, but when the employees sued me, they transferred me to a labor attorney. So you need to understand each component and who you need, when you need it, and why you need it. In September, I will launch out the virtual bootcamp classes from the business ready, government ready, contract ready. So those of you who are out of state, look for that announcement, and I encourage you to sign up, and we can get you engaged in the process as well. GPI also offers direct services for those of you who don't want to go through the bootcamp process, where we can provide one-on-one coaching services based on your need. I have one question from Dr. Harden, or actually 2 questions. The first question from Dr. Harden is, can a business be registered in more than one state? Yes. You will have to register your business in the state that you're looking in, but if you choose to do business in another state, you can register your business as a foreign entity. But with government contracting, you don't necessarily, you may or may not have to register, but typically you will have to register your business as a foreign entity in that state. The second question she has is, can you give a time range on how long the entire business development process would take to get set up properly to take contracts for a business in stage 1 and 2? Generally, what I've seen is based on how much time that you commit to. What I've seen typically 6 months to a year. I worked with Mr. As I say, I had Mr. Willis. He, as you can see on his website, on his name, he initially hired me last year, and he was a law firm. He was forward thinking, and he understood that law, and when you start a business, it's based on your skill set, just like lawyers and doctors. They don't necessarily know how to run a business. So we converted his business to Kirk Willis Consulting Group. I started working with him in February. By August, he had gotten subcontracting opportunities. By September, and through that process of the training, he was bidding and looking at opportunities. He won a contract with the Department of Justice for training. It was a small contract, but it was a foot in the door, and it was a 5-year process. It's a 5-year contract. So my question to that is based on how aggressive you are and how you learn the game. Does that answer your question, Dr. Harden?
It did. Thank you.
I'm going to open it up. Does anyone else have any questions? Next week, we will be, next session, let me move this out. Next session, I am excited about being able to launch the business tool, because we will be bringing on a host of subject matter experts. There seems to be a lot of confusion going on as it relates to the WOSB program. And I reached out to some of my SBA colleagues and asked if they would come on and present during the Lunch and Learn webinar on the rules, the new rules that are going on. We just want to make sure that everyone is clear and that there's no misinformation or misunderstanding on how you become certified in the Women's Owned Small Business Program. With that being said, I'm going to conclude today's session. Thank you for participating in GPI's first Business Tube and Lunch and Learn webinar. I hope to see you next week. Spread the word. Oh, I have one more question. Thank you, Dr. Harding, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye.